Morning, good evening. Hello, everybody out there. My name's James Forson, and welcome to this Regenesis webinar today. It's going to be another fine webinar on the fascinating topic of the future of human resources in the digital age, and we are particularly focusing on the ICT industry. I mean, those are, of course, the people who cause all these problems over here that we've got to deal with. So we're now sitting with the experts who are going to tell us about their insights, their experiences, in managing people, the human resource inside their organizations and what they've learned on the way. As I said, my name's James Forson. I'm the Vice President looking after strategic relations, and I also have a front seat at the conversation this afternoon. I'm delighted to do that. Regenesis, for those of you who are newcomers to the Regenesis events, we're a business school, international business school, campuses in Johannesburg, Lagos, Nigeria, and Mumbai in India. And through our digital offerings, we offer educational products and services to people right around the world. And we are delighted to be in that type of business of creating new learning, new knowledge, and empowering people to fulfill the roles which they should be fulfilling. One of the things we do is these webinars, because not everybody wants or needs to go on a formal course, a degree program, an executive program. And so what we do is, at no charge to us or to the participants, we bring people together to share ideas so that people who would not normally have an opportunity to interface with a panel of the caliber that we have today, we allow them to share ideas, and everybody learns in the process. And that's all the reason why our audience out there has joined us today. To all of you out there, I'm sure you've gone through the challenges of logging on. You're now firmly ensconced in front of your screen, and I'm delighted to welcome you. And with that, I'm going to hand over to the Chief Executive Officer of our Corporate Education Division, who's going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that he wants to share with us over here. So the CEO of the Corporate Education Division, Kapil Jagath. Kapil, take it away.
Thank you, James. Appreciate that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to welcome you all to yet another engaging and insightful webinar by Regenesis Business School. I thought I'll hijack this session for myself initially, just to create some awareness about who I am, because I've just recently joined Regenesis about a month ago, and I thought I'll join a few of these sessions to let you guys know that we've got a corporate education division. We're doing very well, and we're going to aim and grow this business significantly over the forthcoming while. So, like I said, Kapil Jagat taking up this role as CEO, and maybe just to tell you a little about myself. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. Rather, why don't you hit up my LinkedIn profile? I think it's better that way, because once you view my profile, the way the LinkedIn algorithms work, it's probably going to be better for me on a networking side. So let me skip the introduction to myself and rather look up my name, copy and paste from the screen in front of you, and look up at my LinkedIn profile. I'm looking forward to steering our corporate education towards success and collaborating with many companies, perhaps some of the companies that you guys are employed or represented at in this panel of experts. You know, as Regenesis Business School, our future of HR in the digital age series, really it aims to cast the spotlight on the evolving nature of work and the aspects of talent management in various industries. And we all know, and you know, it's said so many times, the recent pandemic and a whole bunch of other issues have really asked deep questions about our traditional employment models and working relationships with our employers. So really the whole point of this is to discuss and to perhaps put a focus on the ICT industry and HR. As a side, and just for some of the panelists' information, I come from the ICT training industry. So I'm really looking forward to getting some great views from you guys. And I'm sure this webinar on HR beyond digital will take shape. So perhaps as a starting point, right? You know, we all know how digital revolution has had an unprecedented impact on the future of work, and we know that digital is perhaps, or technology is incapable without people, and people have been rendered at times incapable without technology. And it's really the marriage of the two forces is what we're trying to discuss and try and find the ideal sort of balance. New developments are changing the quantitative and qualitative requirements of our future workforce, forcing HR professionals to find new ways to manage talent and to be more innovative in the way they do things. 20 years ago, if we were applying for jobs, we would open the Wednesday newspaper if the job was on a Wednesday. I don't think anybody does that nowadays. Anyway, I don't know if you guys knew, but this is our 28th webinar this year, 28th. We've got 4 to go, including this one. And on average, we've had about 70 to 100 delegates per webinar, which is almost 2,000 people this year from so many companies and businesses around the country and internationally. So without perhaps further ado, let me start by asking our esteemed panelists to introduce themselves. And I'm not going to go in any particular order, except the order I see on my screen. And the first person I see on my screen is Lyle Cooper. Please, if you can give us a 30-second introduction, that would be great.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Name is Lyle Cooper. I'm an associate director at Ernst. I sit in the workforce advisory space, but I focus primarily on HR transformation and HR technology. My career has been split in half. Essentially, I spent half my life in consulting. I've worked at Deloitte and EY and KPMG, and I've spent the other half in corporate. I've worked in financial services like First Rand Bank, and in the broadcasting industry, and most recently at Tiger Brands, who make everything that we love. But I'm at the moment, as I said, at EY.
Thank you, Lyle. Next, I've got Bhavna Maharaj.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bhavna Maharaj. I am the group head for BBE Learning and Development for a company called Pravantage Media. We are based in Randburg. So I head up BE for the entire group. I head up learning and development for South Africa and our global businesses. I also head up HR for the African division as well. Recently, I started an accredited training academy so that Pravantage is able to run their own accredited learnerships. And then on the side, I also serve on the board of directors for Wipro Technology South Africa. They are a major ICT firm, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion today. Thanks, Kapil.
Thank you, Bhavna. Next, I have Antoinette from IBM.
Thank you. So let me unmute myself as I introduce myself. Thank you so much for that. And it's just a pleasure to be part of this panel. I am an associate partner at IBM Consulting, responsible for the telecommunications sector. And I have to say, I've been with IBM now just under 2 years. And in this period of time, I have grown exponentially at a time in my career where I thought I'd been there, done that, and seen it all. And the inspiring part is that IBM is over 100 years old, and yet we continuously evolve. We employ over 350,000 people globally, and I think there's something to be learned. And I am particularly passionate about skills development and employment in South Africa. So I really look forward to the discussion and the input on how we're going to overcome the limitations we currently have, because we're driving technology, and education and skills development are not quite there yet. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Antoinette. Please, you can go ahead, Riaz.
Hey, thanks, Kapil. Riaz Osman. I run IBM Consulting for Africa. And IBM Consulting, for those that don't know, is the professional services arm of IBM. So we have a technology business that is mainframe, middleware, software, all the famous IBM technologies, and consulting is professional services. So we run large-scale projects all over Africa and all over the world. I have teams in South Africa working with most of the major corporates in South Africa, and then teams working with companies in Africa. And then from South Africa, we also do work for other parts of the world. So, when we talk about people, ours is certainly a people's business. We deal with people, we deal with skills, and different cultures, I must add. So not only in South Africa obviously has a very rich blend of cultures, but when we sort of talk about the rest of Africa and the rest of the world, that's where the real diversity also comes into play. So I'm really excited about contributing to today's discussion. And thank you very much for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Riaz. Yeah, South Africa is indeed a melting pot of multicultural race groups. Next, I've got Shanique.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to be part of this very topical discussion today. I'm Shanique Dodo. I head the HR function for Oracle South Africa. We form part of the ICT industry. And what we do at Oracle is we look how we can provide solutions and value add to our customers via digital transformation solutions. Thank you.
Thanks, Shanique. I've got Rochelle. If you can introduce yourself, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Quite an interesting topic we're going to discuss today. I'm looking forward. I'm with the Tata Consultancy Services. I've been in the HR sphere, both in learning and development, organizational development, broad-based Black economic empowerment since 2003. Quite different industries so far in my short time. But very interestingly, I've seen how HR has evolved since the time I've started in the early 90s. And how the link between technology and HR has come apart. And this conversation today, I might learn. I was excited to see Lyle is here, to see how we can take this HR thing forward in the digital world and how we can collaborate. I was excited to see Ziad. It's quite amazing to be on a platform with Ziad again. But thank you so much for having us today. It's quite an interesting topic we're going to brainstorm.
Thank you, Rochelle. And our last panelist, if I'm correct, is Ziad from EOH.
Yeah, thanks very much and good afternoon, everybody. Really a privilege and a pleasure to be with you. My name is Ziad Suleiman. I'm the Group Chief Commercial Officer at EOH. I joined EOH about a year ago to head up the entire go-to-market and strategy. So I look after not only the top customers that we have, but also all our OEM partners, of which we have over 50. And also our entire software business, plus the market presence and innovation. Before that, I was at IBM for 13 years. I was the Chief Operating Officer for Africa and really enjoyed my time there, so taking all of those learnings into a different realm. Outside of my professional duties at EOH today, I also serve on a couple of important country initiatives. The first is I'm the chairperson of 4IR and the digital economy for South Africa at BRICS, which means that I represent South Africa in technology discussions with Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and how we collaborate on strategy in that regard. And then also serve on 2 presidential commissions, the one around digital work and digital skills, and then the other one around public-private growth. Yeah, so really looking forward to the discussion. It's extremely important that we do get this right. And I think the world of 4IR and technology in the face of all different dimensions of different industries is important. So I think as we grapple with this and we think about agility and change, I think it's important to bring people along with us. So yeah, looking forward to the discussion and thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ziad, and thank you to the rest of the panelists for that introduction. James, over to you.
Thank you, Kapil. Thank you for looking after the admin at the beginning. We're all set. We're ready to go. To our audience out there, I'm sure you now have gone through all the nickety-knacks to get loaded up and you now connected to us. Welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. Some of you are regulars on our webinars. We thank you for joining. And for those of you new, we hope this is not the last time that you will join us. But none of you are here to listen to me. We're here to listen to our awesome audience, who just from the introduction will tell us the depth of expertise and experience and knowledge that they can share with us. And so it's our task today to be able to get as much of that out and to share it, to make it common knowledge. I didn't know about that, of course, but that is what our surreptitious purpose is today. Right, let's start with a quick rapid fire question and go around the room in no particular order over here. What are the big challenges where you're sitting inside your organization doing the things that you're responsible for? What are the big challenges that are coming down from you, down towards you from a human resource people management point of view? Let's get a feel for the playground we're working in. Who would like to kick us off for that? Ready, getty, go. And
Yeah, maybe I'm
yes.
happy to kick off.
Yes, kick us off. It's always the first one to start, and then we're into it. Lovely. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's exciting times. There, lots happening in the world, lots of change happening in the world, and we obviously impacted locally as well. So I think the one thing top of mind for us is back to the office, and being, consulting or professional services organization. Our people can do work from wherever they are, on the beach, at home, etc. So convincing people to get back to the office has been a bit of a challenge, but we also understand why they are hesitant to come back to the office. So that's, I wouldn't say it's a major challenge, but just something very interesting to deal with, which we haven't had to deal with before.
Good. No, thanks, Riaz. I can see Lyle's had his hand up for a long time. His hand's getting tired sitting up there in the sky all the time. Lyle, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I can echo what Riaz said around people not wanting to come back into the office. Also, professional services, we have a similar challenge. The other thing that we are facing is a significant movement of people, both out of Johannesburg, but also definitely offshore. We've seen a significant number of senior skills leave the country over the last 6 to 8 months. So the great resignation, although I hate all of these great terms, because I think we have a tendency now to put great in front of everything. If it isn't great, it's quiet, which is frustrating. But I think there's definitely been a move of skills and talent offshore, and I think that is impacting on us as an organization, but on the industry as a whole.
Skills and talent, that's a key thing we're going to be getting onto in a little later on in the conversation. So I don't want to dampen our gunpowder on that at this particular moment. I can see that Ziad is waiting patiently there in his little corner, and he's going to talk to us now.
Yeah, thanks. So I think when we talk about ICT challenges in the environment, it's quite a broad topic. The first thing is, I think the adaptability of linking your business strategy into your workforce, into your processes, into your ways of work. It's really a new dimension, right? I think in the past, a lot of the multinationals used to always adopt this, model of where you could work from anywhere. But I don't think it's a phenomenon that was really widespread. And I think as COVID hit, I think it meant many different things for many different people and many businesses. And what I mean by that is people had to adapt. People had to be adaptive of new cultures. I think the processes and the ways of working had to be adopted, and ultimately people needed to learn new skills. So I know we're going to talk about skills just now, but I think the agility is something that's very, very important. The other thing from a leadership perspective is, how do you actually motivate a remote workforce, right? And I think motivation and connection and making sure that people have a purpose is equally important. So it's a multifaceted type of question, which I think has to think about what is your new business model in a post-COVID era? How do you get your workforce to then gravitate towards serving your customers, both whether it be internal customers or external? How do you align your value propositions to make sure that it still talks to your market and that you remain relevant? And then ultimately, how do you bring all of that together and make sure that you do have a growing business? So I don't want to take up all the time, but I think it's a fascinating topic in itself, which we could spend a long time, debating and sharing on. But I just wanted to throw those ideas into the ring, and perhaps maybe with the rest of my colleagues, we could expand on some of those aspects as we move forward.
Ziad, you've thrown some pretty heavy-duty challenges into the room there. I liked what you said about strategy and how strategy has to be differently conceptualized to take it into the organization, because people are not just, oh, well, this is the strategy, now we've got to do this in the performance management system. It has exciting things around that. And I think as a business school, strategy is one of the core modules on our flagship MBA program. So we're always excited about strategy and how strategy is changing, and also human purpose as well too. And I'm hoping we'll touch on that. So I just want to pop that out there. Play with that, kick that around later on in the discussion, and also the business model. But that's some nice meaty, weighty stuff that we've got to deal with out there. Right, who is next in the queue? Who's the next contestant? Just go ahead and over talk. Oh, there we go, Shanique. There we go. Lovely. Yes.
Thanks so much. So just to add on to Riaz's point, what we've seen as well as a major trend in the HR space also speaks to leadership is now that we've come out of the pandemic and we've equipped our employees with all the possible technology for them to be able to continue doing their work in these unprecedented times, we find now also that our employees are struggling to switch off. And this also speaks to a leadership, the leadership culture, the organizational culture, in fact. So wellness, employee well-being has also now come to play. Previously, this topic hasn't even been in leadership meetings, at EXCO discussions, on those types of tables, right? Now we find it topical, prevalent, at the top of the agenda, and that's key. For our topic today, in fact.
Oh, no, that's almost, we almost need to have a moment's silence on that, about mental wellness and physical wellness too. And I think that's just come to the fore in a way which we've never ever experienced. And that's another rich vein we've got to talk to this afternoon. We've got to do that. We've got to talk to that. Right, who's the next in line here? I think Antoinette, you were going to say something.
Yes, I'd like to
continue
echo.
to say it.
Thank you.
To say it.
Thank you. I'd like to echo actually the comments from the entire panel, but specifically from Shanique, because employee wellness is key. And that leads us into the conversation about retention. You know, when you go out and recruit, the cost of recruiting, training, assimilating people versus retaining and developing your core skills are so vast. And that element of retention is absolutely key, because we want to make sure that people are growing within our environment and developing into the areas that the strategy is talking towards. So I really think retention is a key aspect too.
It's the retention, and I like the way you linked it back into strategy as well too, that is part of the way the world of work has evolved. Strategy is not an out there thing, it's now become a personal in-ear thing. And someone will express it much more elegantly than I'm going to ever do that later on today. But Bhavna, I think your hand was up, and then after Bhavna, we're going to Rochelle.
Yes, absolutely. So I echo the sentiments of my fellow colleagues. The biggest challenge I've actually found is that of performance management and actually managing virtual teams. And, you know, there's a common trend, and it's called quiet quitting. And that has been trending quite a lot recently. But really recognizing and rewarding people virtually is really tough. And creating alignment of strategy in that regard has become imperative and crucial. And to create employee wellness, but through a virtual mechanism, you have to be quite strategic and creative in that regard. What I'm also finding a little bit challenging is creating alignment between our older generation and our younger generation. So whereas the younger ones are quite adaptable to technology and using that of Zoom, Teams, etc., you know, there's still a handful of teams and personnel that are very old school that would prefer meetings face to face, you know, and there's specific functions in a business whereby it's best that you are face to face in order to be effective and efficient. So those are the challenges, but I think the big one is definitely motivation. And how do you motivate people virtually and creating interactions and recognition in that regard?
Lovely, thanks, Bhavna. Right, next, Rochelle, you've been waiting patiently, and now you're going to talk to us.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Just as a business, I think, apart from the fact that somebody is asking you, but Rochelle, what broke over 2.5 years when I was not at the office? Why must I come back? Apart from that, you need to find a way how we can firstly keep people engaged. And then on the other hand, how do you now track behavior and engagement patterns within your people to keep them together and make sure that people deliver? It is really, from an HR point of view, a hectic struggle in terms of putting strategy together and say, how do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them switched on? And how do you track the behavioral patterns to ensure that everybody delivers what they're supposed to be delivering? But also, COVID has made us make very quick decisions. So I think as business and as we sit around the table today, we will be able to make those kind of decisions to make sure that each business functions and also grow at the same time. Because employee engagement, for me, what I've experienced in our business in the 2.5, 3 years, and employee engagement hasn't been a challenge. But now, how do you keep people moving in an environment where HR in the past used to be a contact department, now has become a digital department? You cannot walk into your HR manager's office and say, I need this and I want to do that. Now you have to go on Teams, and that in itself is a challenge because we need that human contact. But bringing them back to the office is, I think, a bigger challenge to create that human contact, which might never be the case ever again.
It might never be the case ever again. What amazing times we are living in. Did you want to come in there, Kapil?
Yeah, no, thanks, James. I just want to make a comment. Now, I want to thank the panelists for some great views. I want to make a comment, right? And perhaps let's see that comment leads to something else. They say us guys in the education industry have been put under immense pressure of late because of technology and ed tech and disruption and lots of fancy tech words, but most people really don't understand how ed tech affects us. But we've been criticized in the education industry across all sectors, whether it's business, ICT, science, whatever, that education is not a one-size-fits-all situation. That means you come in the classroom, you're one of 30 children, you get a blackboard, we write on the blackboard, and so forth. I'd like to argue that is also not the case. It's true, number one, and number two, it's true for employees. Not all employees should have the privilege to work from home. Why? Because not all employees have the same maturity levels to work from home. Not all employees have the same job that can be productive in a home environment, right? Not all employees have home environments that are healthy to work from home. So I just wanted to put that out there and see what happens beyond that comment. Thanks, James.
Lovely, thanks, Kapil. That's good. Right, we're into the game now. We've got some really exciting stuff. We talk about motivation, talk about purpose, talk about strategy, talk about the business model, performance management, and keeping them together and the humanness of organization. Of course, I was very disappointed in this because I thought you people coming from ICT would have had all sorts of wonderful things about artificial intelligence, and you're talking about big data, and you're talking about the Internet of Things, etc. And here we're talking about something that's far more difficult, far more complex, far more nuanced than what the average person would have thought. Now, I want to try and picking up on what Kapil's thrown at us over here and what you've put on the table, because there's some big issues on the table here. I want to take it through and take it back into your organizations, and you're looking at your senior middle management, because those are the people who actually do the day-to-day work, but they're also the people who get in the way of getting things done. Because we've been doing this for the last 25 years. What do you know about this over here? Given this environment that you've sketched for us now, given that your strategy has to mean something different, that people have a different purpose, how do you motivate, focus, direct your middle management people who are sitting in the broadband organization, who pitch up day after day, get the work done? How do you make their world a better place so that they can give you what you need? I see Ziad's hand up, and then we'll take Lyle after that. I don't know if that was a legacy hand. That's one of the terms I've learned on these webinars. You have a legacy hand, which was left over from a previous question, but then people just leave it up because they're ready to go. So Ziad, take it away.
Yeah, so thanks. You look, the point that I wanted to make before Kapil's point, but I think it took its way into this discussion as well, is we also need to think about a blended workforce. And I think it talks now to which are those people that need to be in the office or the work environment versus those that can work remotely for whatever reason. But if I can maybe just pause that and go into what Kapil was talking about, I do think it is important to have a flexible policy around different employees. If you think about certain work that is highly dependent on people being on site, you don't have a choice, right? Because you lose the customer, you lose the efficiency, you lose all of those benefits by having somebody totally remote. The other point is that in allowing people to be where they need to be, it allows you to get the outcome. And I really want to stress this point, right? I think the world has moved away from people just sitting in a chair and doing 8 hours of work to something that is outcome-based. It has to be outcome-based today. And as you think about the outcome and the objective, that has to be measurable. You almost have to swing the pendulum away from overly managing people where they feel stifled to a position of where you just as a leader are supporting them to achieve a desired outcome. So you need to empower people. You need to allow them to have the space to be able to make decisions. You obviously need the maturity both as an organization as well as a leader in order to allow for all of those things. But at the same time, I think somebody spoke about performance management. It is extremely important to stay connected, right? You cannot have a situation of where you talk to your people once a month because there's only 12 meetings then in a year, which is just unacceptable. So how do you remain connected to your people to support them and ensure that their performance is of the right standard to deliver the outcome? And I think that's the important thing. So in deciding how to manage that, you then end up with a flexible, agile type of workforce of where certain people need to be on premise, sorry to use a technology term in a different context, but people being on premise because that's what's needed for the outcome of the job, and others that are working off premise or remotely in order to derive a different outcome. And I think how you achieve all of that is really up to leadership, but leadership has certainly got to be mature and operate in a different realm. I'll allow others to comment. Thanks.
Yeah, I thought you were going to give us the answer over there. And you just follow these 5 steps and then it's all done over there. I love the surreptitious way you brought the thing talking about motivation and the blended workforce. You brought it back into performance management and how we have to look at an outcome and output-based thing over there rather than activity-based. It's a difference between producing grass that is green and telling people to mow the lawn. And, so too many of us who work in organizations, we are told to mow the lawn, but actually what we have to produce is lovely green grass. Right, we're going to hear from Lyle and then Antoinette and then Riaz. And there's no shortage of content to deal with. So Lyle, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so I think just to follow on from the previous 2 sets of comments, keeping people at the center of everything that you do from an organizational strategy perspective is critical. The days of it being a revolutionary thing to say that our people are our greatest asset, those days died about 20 years ago. People are the greatest asset. They are the source of value for almost all organizations, definitely in the services sector. So making sure that you place people at the center of everything is incredibly important. And then I just wanted to raise around the hybrid strategy for dealing with people and managing their performance. It's incredibly important, I think, that how you apply that strategy and the guidelines you put around where and when people work and how you measure them should be based on projects or tasks that need to be done and the outputs that you want. Because there's been a bunch of research that's been done about the variable effect of remote working against on-premise face-to-face working. And they have, it turns out, quite dramatic impact on what kinds of work can get executed best. So remote working is incredibly useful for driving up some of the productivity. We saw that during COVID, team productivity rates went quite high But what suffered in the result of that was the kind of serendipitous connections between people and between teams. So we saw a reduction in creativity, new product innovation, et cetera, those took a bit of a dip because people were getting their work done, but they were dealing with their team. They weren't running into people in the canteen or running into them at the coffee machine and having a conversation outside of their areas of comfort. So depending on what you want to do, remote working might be valuable, on-premise working might be valuable, or a combination of the two, depending on the specific tasks that you're driving.
Yeah, and what's implicit in what you've shared with us, Lyle, is the translation of the strategy down into people working in either these remote or on-premise environments, I think. And the usual way we do this is you'd have a big presentation and lots of PowerPoint slides, and people would talk to things and have graphs always going up. The graphs always go up when you're looking at the future. They always look up. And then people would have to take things out for marketing and for finance and operations and logistics and things like that out there. But I get the feeling that as we explore this afternoon, you're going to leave us with different ways of how we inculcate, how we put this into the organization so that people understand the output rather than the activity, that they're producing green grass and they're not just mowing the lawn. And to take it further, we're going to hear from Antoinette.
Thanks, James. And I'm going to tie it down to 3 key points.
Oh, good. This is it. Perks, get ready to write this down. This is it.
Consulting 101, right?
Yes, love it.
The very first point is discipline. It doesn't matter whether you're virtual, whether you're physical, wherever you are, there absolutely has to be a culture of discipline. The second point is accountability. So, and that talks to the output. If you do not have accountability within your team and you do not instill accountability within your team, you're not going to have those outputs that you set out. The third is, how do you show up? Now, if I'm working from home and I'm joining a virtual meeting, how I show up has to absolutely be professional because it's work hours. And whether it means showing up virtually or showing up back at the office, the professionalism and the business integrity has to be in place. And I really want to make a call out to Riaz, because Riaz manages a really diverse, eccentric team. And Riaz does exactly that. Make sure that there's discipline, there's accountability, and how we show up.
Oh, no pressure over there. It's a good, nice. What I like, there are a couple of things I want to touch on there before we take it to the next level, because this is really getting to the nice stuff now. It's about discipline. That's somebody mentioned in maturity further on, and discipline is you actually have to take charge. You know, the whole thing of what's it, the locus of control. It's very much an internal locus of control. Yet you could sort of go off and do your work, because that's what you do. You dedicate, you focus, you discipline. The other side of this was also the accountability, that someone holds you to account. And from what I've heard from other organizations I've worked with, is that often people don't take an interest in your personal work. They're looking at what you're doing, and they have you tick this off, but not actually what you're doing and how you're doing it. And that's that accountability of being able to say, yes, I was given this part of the strategy to do. These are the outputs and outcomes I've delivered, and take an interest in what I've done and how I've done it over there. And there might be something there we want in mind. And then, so you said pure gold over there, Antoinette, when you were speaking about how do you show up. It's something we do very strongly in our leadership stuff. Is how do you show up? And that's from everything, how you look to how you present yourself, to how you register yourself in the conversation, to how you make an impact over there. And I don't want to take any wind out of anybody's sails in that, but that's going to be something that's nice. And I like you, the 3-point thing over there. Folks, you heard it over here. The audience out there, you heard it over here with Regenesis. 3 points over there. Lovely. Well done. Thanks. Right. Who was next over here? I see. Let's give Bhavna a chance now. Bhavna wanted to get in there, and then we'll go to Riaz after that, because we've been putting a lot of pressure on Riaz over here, so he's got time. He's got to counter what Rochelle has said over there. But we'll give him a moment. Bhavna, go ahead.
You know, sometimes it's also just going back to basics. Sometimes we do tend to overcomplicate it or overthink it. It's literally going back to basics, such as what are your company values, and over-communicating that. So when we want to achieve efficiency and effectiveness, it's simple things that we do to drive output and consistency. And it's things like, what are your company values and how are you actually communicating that to your entire team and organization? What are the objectives, be it that of, the company vision or your team's vision and objectives? What are goals? What are the expectations? I have a common saying, know your job and do it well. Those are little and simple things that you can do to implement in your organization. But what I find is a common lack is that of leadership skills and management skills. And, predominantly during the COVID period where people were actually put in management or leadership, but they weren't actually given the skills on how to do it. And what complicated it was that it became a virtual platform as well. So sometimes simple empowerment and education, teaching leaders how to have courageous conversations, how to really performance coach people. And I'm using the word performance coach and not performance manage, because when we talk about performance management, there's a bit of negativity towards it. But when we talk about performance coaching, it's a little bit more positive. And for me, in order to drive efficiency and output, it's the simple things, reminding people of simple things like values, objectives, goals, expectations. But I think, the lack of communication, that for me is, there's no such thing as over communication. As a leader, as a manager, and in HR, in order to drive transformation and output, just communicate. And the way that you communicate is key. Simple little things like that help and go a long way.
Yeah, no, that's some lovely stuff there, Bhavna. I liked what you said about values, because often we see these things at the entrance when you come into the building, but that's not the real values of the organization. And for me, values always should be expressed in a behavioral sense. What does it mean to act with integrity? Give me examples in our company of what we do over here. That's what it does over there. I'm going to leave that there. And then what you very skillfully did over there, and I like that, you brought the conversation back into leadership and management, which is where I started off this conversation, this section of the conversation. Those folk in the middle of the organization have to get these things done. They're coaching the teams, they're busy running the things, they're delivering, they're doing whatever they need to be doing inside the organization. How do you scoop them into the process to get them excited about this new world over here? Because some folk haven't made the transition to work from home, and some people are very happy to be back in office, and other people will be very happy if they never see an office again. But you've got to keep these people over there with a sense of purpose and focus and drive, and I don't have the answers for that. But I like the idea of the performance coach. And again, I'm going to arrogantly subsume that into my earlier comment about paying attention, expressing an interest in someone. A performance coach is not a performance manager. A performance coach helps other people to get better rather than ticks the boxes of what you've done there. Nice. Who was next? I'm seeing, right, we're going to go to Riaz. He's got a lot to answer for now, so we're going to park there a while, and he's going to tell us all the good things.
Absolutely. Look, I think leading on to your question, James, about leadership and management, and Bhavna's comment about being practical, I guess. And I think what we need to understand is, at the end of the day, no matter what industry we are operating in, we run businesses. We're running a business, and we expect the business to be successful. We expect the people that run the business to be successful, because if we don't sort of meet those basic needs, then the business runs out of bandwidth, and the business closes down. So I think we need to be practical and pragmatic. So there's a flexibility element. There's a flexibility element from management and leadership to understand the situation of different people, the industry that they're operating in, etc. And there's a flexibility required from employees to understand the needs of the business. And like Antoinette mentioned, have the accountability, showing up, and the way in which you show up. So, and to me, those are practical things. They're no-brainers. I think if we can sort of have that level of flexibility on both sides, and the empathy that goes with it, we can solve a lot of problems. But at a leadership and management level, I think what all of us need is a management system that works for each one of us. So no matter what level you are you at the CEO level? Are you at the middle management level? do you have a management system in place that allows you to, or that ensures you have the level of control that you require, you're getting the level of feedback that you require on progress, that allows you to manage the outcomes, whether they are financial, whether they are, work related that your people are doing. So that, to me, that the management system that each one of us at every level has in place is really, really important. So that's my main point. A secondary point I just want to make and maybe throw in there is this virtual way of working is one of the ways where South Africa, especially in the services industry, can contribute to solving our employment problem. Because it then no longer restricts us to South Africa. We can provide services. The world is our oyster. So I think we need to think more and more about that this new world, the virtual world that we're operating in, allows us to transcend the boundaries of South Africa and allows us also to solve some of our challenges.
Yes, we can't let you go away like that. We've got to keep you here. We've got to keep it. Talk to us more about the management system. Give us some more nuance, some depth, some flavor to that.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. There are tools available in terms of management systems. There are, there's your normal meetings, there's your normal one-on-ones that you need to have. But what allows you to sort of manage the outcomes that you want? So one way is reporting, right? Ensuring that your people know the level of reporting you require, whether it's verbal reporting or paper-based reporting or electronic reporting, whatever works for you in the organization that you work in. Sort of making sure that the templates are available and people know what reporting you require. The second thing is tools. What tools are available to allow you to put an efficient management system in place? So we use, there's tools that we use in IBM. One of them is we use WebEx instead of Teams or Zoom. Does that work for you? Doesn't it work for you? How do you sort of manage WebEx communication to be effective when you're meeting with your teams? So WebEx or Teams etiquette or Zoom etiquette, video calling etiquette is really, really important. And then the ability to use tools like Trello. We use it quite extensively in terms of checking the progress of various sales activities. As an example, the progress of a sale, using stuff like Salesforce, which is also out there where you can track client interactions. There are so many tools out there. So again, in your organization, people use different tools.
Yeah.
Make efficient use of those tools.
Good. No, thanks for that. I can see all sorts of hands waving at me, and I see Rochelle has disappeared. I've missed out. Shanique, have you had a chance to talk to us yet?
I know I have something to add though. Thanks, James.
Well, now it's your moment.
Perfect. So just to add to the conversation as well, how we can, to your question that you originally asked in terms of how we can make the world a better place for our middle to senior managers, right? The pandemic has showed us more than ever that we cannot operate in silos. We can't go through these unprecedented times alone, right? And one of the things that we've noticed on a worldly spectrum is that the role of HR has evolved so tremendously over this period of time. And during the pandemic, we've now become these strategic partners. The business has come to us. I say us because I'm part of the HR community. During the pandemic, so the business has come to us, strategic partners. Every step of the way for advice. And in that time, we've needed to be trusted partners. We've needed to solve problems we've never been faced with before, some of us ever, depending on the age, of course. So I think, to your point in how we can make the world a better place for our managers, middle managers or senior managers, right? Some of our managers and senior managers, can you imagine for those that are micromanagers, when word came out to say, we're going on lockdown, all employees have to work from home. Can you imagine how hard that must have been for our micromanagers? Extremely hard, right? And it's something they needed to unlearn very quickly because they had no choice, right? But also to equip our managers and our leaders with ways on how to manage output, to guide them, to provide the coaching. We've even noticed that leaders and managers may not have the skills to adapt to such an environment, to such circumstances. So how do we as an HR community upskill our leaders and our managers?
How do you do that? I'm going to interrupt you there because now's the chance for Oracle to get back at IBM now. What do you do inside Oracle to do that? That really goes to the nub of this. I love it. I love it. Go ahead. Develop it further.
Perfect. So I can actually give you some examples.
Yes.
Not to speak out of the house, for lack of a better term.
We all South Africans, we understand exactly what you mean.
Perfect. So the culture in our type of environment is such that we are a sales organization, very numbers driven, high performance culture, very easy, if I can say that, to monitor output. You either make your deals or you don't make your deals, right? So it's relatively easy. And so things like empathy, things like giving employees the benefit of the doubt, looking at the entire picture and not only on the numbers. If you look at our client circumstances, the pandemic hit so many companies, right? Our customers being a large portion of them. So how do we as a business expect our sales employees to meet that targets, knowing what the world is facing at that moment? So I can tell you, James, and my fellow panelists, for our type of environment, it was extremely hard, very hard, but it was a combination of unlearning, having empathy, understanding the bigger picture, like I've said, and also bringing back all that softer skills, well-being, employee flexibility, household circumstances, employees facing loss due to the pandemic, all those extra added things our managers and our senior managers needed to be aware of and take into account, and not just the bottom line.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good. No, that's a very helpful input out there, because now early on we spoke a little bit about values, and there's one organization in this room which is also at the forefront of living a values-driven organization. Very powerful values going right back to the founder. It's permeated through as the organizations go on around the world, and that is the Tata Group. And so, Rochelle, you're going to give us your view and your impact, your insight into this conversation, please.
So, from an HR point of view, I think you have to walk this path with your managers all the time. There is no mixture that can say this is how you need to do it, manager, going forward, because you'll always find that manager that is very output driven, that wants to see the people around him, that wants to talk to them every day. And as HR, it's our job to ensure that as you go along, you say, manager, but this is the way you have to do it. This is the way that you have to manage this situation. This is the way how you manage this employee. Because managers will always be managers. They see their clients, they need to feedback, they need to ensure that things are happening. And it's for the employee, sometimes the reason why they join organizations is because of maybe culture, maybe the values. There's a connect in ethos. And those are the things that becomes important for certain employees. And I just want to take on Kapil on what he said. Like, not all employees needs to work from home. All employees can work from home, given that the environment supports it, the circumstances supports it, the deliverables are there, and yet again, you bring the managers with that decision that you are making. Some job roles does not require you to be at the office, so you got to give it that. Some needs to be there, but it is how the organization goes with their employees in terms of their values. Some people say, but I cannot send my child to school because I'm already signed up for homeschooling. So how do we as an organization support that? And at the same time, help the employee to still deliver and still be a mother, or still deliver and still be a father. And that for us was very important in the past 2.5 years. And we did just that. We tried to make sure that everybody in their spaces, in their responsibilities, be accountable, be deliver, but yet again, be fathers and mothers and employees at home. Some of these things are just more difficult to manage, and others are much easier to manage. But it depends on the organizational culture. What is it that you as an organization puts on the table for your employees to be able to be functional in whatever circumstances it might be? And that is what we really work upon and make sure that happens.
I mentioned early on that Tata is based on very strong and powerful values, and you have not disappointed, Rochelle. I like your thing about walking the path. And again, that's paying attention to give the individual human being, not just, a body of human biological microprocessors sitting in a meeting, but actually human person, that attention over there. And I'm seeing that coming across as a team going through all of this over here. And it somehow feels a little bit disappointing. We thought it'd be bigger, grander stuff, but this is actually a very difficult thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, especially in remote things. And I see hands waving at me furiously. So we'll hear from Lyle, then we'll hear back from Ziad, and then a couple I know wants to come in as well too. And then we'll take off the conversation another direction. But Ziad, say you say so.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I think a lot of interesting comments. I think the world that we operate in today is really a microcosm of so much, right? Whether it be culture, diversity, people's, just their mannerisms, the technology trends, the output, all of those things. But for me, as Riaz was speaking about, the tools, etc., it got me thinking about the world of 4IR and really what type of immersion did we have from a technology perspective into the world of HR? And how do people operate differently? And I think you earlier, James, started speaking about, the world of data and AI and all of those types of things. And for me, I think that's really a lot of what I'd like to maybe start talking about, if that's okay with you, because I think that, to a large extent starts bringing out how does man and machine really operate together. So as we think about this and we think about the tools, we think about HR and the amount of data that's available to them now in order to make good, rational business decisions, right? We think about the AI that sits on top of the data and what that has done in terms of being able to cut through masses of information at a fingertip, right? And then we think about the scaling of the data and all the information we have into the cloud, underpinned by security, because in the world of 4IR today, people's personal information with the likes of POPIA, all of those types of things, extremely important, right? And we then think about, well, what does all of this technology trends really mean to us as employees and as employers? And I think that brings a fascinating discussion linked into the systems, that Riaz was speaking about earlier, because that very system of how do you measure people, how do you actually work with the Trello board, how do you operate regardless of where you're sitting, they're all technology tools, right? And how do we adopt these tools to become more output driven, but also more efficient? Because the reality is every company is trying to do more with less. Every company wants the best employees. The reality is that there is a void when it comes to a plethora of digitally savvy people, right? People are on the path. We don't have all the people. So therefore, an EY to an Oracle to an EOH to an IBM are all competing for the same type of skills. But what differentiates the parties is really the softer pieces around your culture, your empathy, your leadership, all of that. And how do we really get, this man or human being and machine operating together in a way that's actually, positive and progressive? And I mean, those are some of the things that I've been thinking about as the different people were speaking, because as we move forward on that, you then think, okay, well, if we're already working in quite an advanced technological world, what's going to happen in 5 years' time when quantum computing really takes off? Where is it going to put us, and what happens to the workforce? And then if we take that even one step further and we say, well, what's going to happen with the immersion of robotics in numerous industries, right? We already see it in the supply chain around automotive, in a couple of other areas around manufacturing, etc. But what's going to happen in the services industry? How are people going to relate to these changes? Because really, it's unsettling, right? And people manage people. People are sitting where they looking after a workforce. People want stability. They want comfort. They want an assurance that they're going to have a job. They want to make sure that they have the right skills. How do we grapple with all of these things? And then when you take all of this and then you throw the world of training and development in, what skills are you really training for? Are you developing your people around a specific type of technological tool, or are you training them for the technological world, right? And I mean, I can just talk on these things because you can see I'm quite passionate about this. But the reality is that we have to have a blend around all of these different contextual issues that we're facing. And we have to give people the comfort, and we have to think about the skilling, the reskilling, and the upskilling in order to live in a world that's ever dynamic and will always throw challenges at us. So I wanted to put that out there. James, I hope I'm not taking you off track, but I think it's something that I'd be very interested in understanding, where other people's minds are.
We're going to have to invite all of you back again to continue this for another week over here, because there's so many depth around this here. And I think what I liked about what you're saying is about that we actually are facing a massive change in the way work gets done, especially with the Internet of Things, information technology, the automation of drudgerous jobs, which really don't need to be done. People are talking about it. You can actually replace a lawyer, which I'm quite happy about, but I suppose lawyers aren't too happy about that. No lawyers in the room over there. And, for other medical services and things like that, changing the business model of a doctor. A doctor gets, when you get healthy, the doctor stops being paid, which there's a contradiction in that, isn't there, somewhere over there? But I'm not here to drive the debate. The content is being driven by our panelists, and the next panelist is going to be Lyle. And then I think we'll go to Kapil after that, because he wants to put in a couple of comments there. And then I think we'll change direction in the short time we still have available. But Lyle, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. So I wanted to take you back to a comment you made about you're expecting grand things.
Yes.
And I want to point out that grand things are always built from foundation up. So getting your foundational stuff correct and in place is critical. Otherwise, your building will fall over. And I think so. Coming back to the question around managing of people and linking into some of the other conversations, so I think it is absolutely important that people are provided with the clarity around their role and the expectations of that role, and that they're provided, or that the organizational culture matches the delivery mode. And by that I mean, if you are a micromanaging organization, don't then try and run stuff by distribution or offsite work, because the micromanagers want to see it. I'm not saying micromanaging is a good management strategy. I'm just saying you have to match how you manage your people with the means that you give them to execute. And then coming on to the situation, and it sort of touches on a question that was raised in the chat by Dumisani around technology and how it enables. I think one of the core things is the tools need to be made available. So if COVID had hit even 5 years before, I shudder to think what would have happened, because the maturity of a lot of our enterprise tools wasn't there. We wouldn't have had Office 365, where it's relatively easy to collect your email. Anybody who's been working in the consulting business for longer than 10 years will remember just how hard it was to collect your mail offsite from home. You had to have multiple VPNs and security tags and passwords, and it was a nightmare. And usually you had to apply for express permission to do so. So the world, we were lucky in a way that COVID hit when it did, because we were technically more or less ready for a change in the work culture. And I think it's important from that perspective that we provide people with tools that allow them to do their work in their natural workspaces. So we've seen the growth of things like Teams and Slack and WebEx and all of those tools that allow you to work with your colleagues on your work in a collaborative fashion, and that these are supported through other tools like work and ticketing tools like ServiceNow, which drive administrative capabilities for the business. And those are able to take the drudgery and the friction away from getting things done from the employee and drive them through more automated business processes. So in your workday, you can sit in a virtual space like Teams, engage with your customers, engage with your colleagues, ask questions of HR, get them answered, all without having to create a confusion of user experience and interfaces and passwords and all the other things you need to be able to execute your work on a day-to-day basis. So you need to come back to the foundations of make work as easy as possible and as frictionless as possible so that people can get on with the job in front of them.
Descriptionless, I like that. That's a word. Somebody take that away, write that down. You heard it here. Descriptionless, I like that. Now, I like the way that we're actually taking a very different view on meetings, because in the old days, before technology, as we know it now, the only way you could share ideas was everybody sitting around a table. You know, even trying to run a telephone meeting, those of you who are old enough to try to run a meeting with people around the world on telephone line is terrible. It's a disaster over there. But the meeting is being replaced by a different thing. And I think that if we're looking at Slack and Trello, and that, they are still in the infancy. We're sitting right at the bottom of the experience curve over there. Where those are going to be in 5 or 10 years' time, I don't know, but it's going to look very, very different. And I think what you put is you put your finger on that this is a trend we must all look for over there. We must follow this trend over there, because the collaboration is the way of working. You can't just leave people to just plod on doing their own thing. They have to talk, integrate, understand the changing environment. We just look at the volatility with fuel price and the dollar exchange rate and things like that. It just changes your world overnight for you. And so we need those immediacy things over there in the descriptionless world. I'm going to think about that tonight, descriptionless. There's a lot of depth in that. Right, couple, would you like to come in here, and then we'll go off and go and find some other things to talk about in the little bit of time we have available.
I must say it's quite fascinating to hear everyone's views. It looks like we've got a confluence, and I use the word confluence, not balance, of ICT personnel and HR personnel views on this panel. And I'm going to make a comment again, whether it throws the cat amongst the pigeons or not, it's not up to me, right? I want to say the following things. And I've heard Riaz, I've heard Shanique, and I most certainly know a business like EOH. And in fact, all of you guys, I'm very familiar with your business models. It's all about performance, right? That's what it's about. And to what extent are you and your businesses, or let me say us, because I'm also a businessman, how long are we going to hide behind this virtual world, which is convenient and cheap and easy and lazy to take advantage of our staff? Because in this virtual world, you are multitasking. I'm talking to you whilst you are reading an email. In this virtual world, I just went to bed, my cell phone by my bedside, and then you hear that most irritating noise of Microsoft Outlook email coming in. In this virtual world, you're sitting at a picnic with your kids, and then you get a message to say, it's probably an innocuous message, but it agitates your mind, and it takes your mind away from your family and moves it to work, right? So how long are organizations going to continue to say, oh, virtual world, all the fancy technology terms and blah, 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 people are going to be happy, it's convenient, but really, over the long term, It's destroying the very tapestry of DNA that makes us humans. So I just want to make that comment, and if anybody feels compelled to jump out and
Yes, be compelled. I can see Bhavna is compelled. Bhavna, rise to the occasion.
So Kapil, I can tell you this much. Okay, firstly, virtual does not work to the extent that we want it to work. In specific situations and instances, it will work. But I find myself now having to travel into the global markets because virtual is just not working anymore. And there's a lot of people issues and lack of interactions, for example, and this is why I have to travel into our global markets to create that HR foundation, that people foundation. But in terms of violating people or using them because of this virtual thing, I'll tell you this much. The company didn't do it to me. I did it to myself. And I'll tell you why, because your travel time is now taken away. So you're not traveling. So therefore, as soon as you get up, you can open your PC, right? And then you find yourself working on your laptop. And before you know it, it's 10 or 11 a.m. in the morning till you have breakfast or you're not breaking. So it becomes important to, for the employee themselves or for our people to know how to create balance. And unfortunately, that's something that we may not have educated our employees on till COVID hit. So I don't think companies were imposing that on employees. It was employees not knowing how to essentially break away. Because I did that, but my company didn't expect that from me. It was just, I wasn't traveling anymore. So I could wake up early and I didn't stop. I had to teach myself how to stop, how to break, how to step away, how to actually go out and get sunshine, because now you just sit there in front of your laptop, right? At work, you would go to the canteen or you would take a drive and get your lunch or meet with a colleague, but that didn't exist anymore during COVID period. You were simply at home. So it was us as HR that we needed to implement or teach people how to create that balance. And we also had to drive it through leadership. To say that, it's important as a leader not to overexpose your employee just because they are working from home. You understand? The breaks will still apply. Your working times will still apply. So those working conditions should not have been influenced in that regard. And it was up to us to implement, teach, and drive that through the leadership and managers in our divisions.
It's okay to take a break. Good.
Yeah.
All right.
I just wanted to say, what if organizations knew that? So we know as an organization that Bhavna is not going to finish work at 5. And we've learned that over 2 years. And we continue to allow you to do that. So anyway, I don't want to dwell too much on that, but I hear your view, but I think there's always different views.
100%.
There's always different views, and as a university, as a business school, we thrive on conflicting and different views because that's the white heat in which new knowledge, new understanding is created. And to take us a little bit down that path, there's going to be Riaz, and then we're going to have Ziad after that. So Riaz, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that, in the organizations that we operate in, and it's not, universal, we obviously want to empower our people. And that's where, you're trying to move away from micromanagement and allowing them to sort of make decisions about the business, make decisions about themselves. So I think more than ever, the self-awareness is required. You need to know what drives you as an individual and as a person. Are you a 24/7 always on type of person? And are you happy operating like that? Some people are. I'm one of those, unfortunately, as Antoinette will tell you. But or are you one of those people that sets the boundaries, that says, listen, I've got a family to look after. I've got an elderly mother or father. I've got responsibilities to my community, and I'm going to make time for that because my time or that time is important to me, and I'm going to set those boundaries, and people need to know about those boundaries. I know a lot of people who do that, and luckily in the organizations in which we operate, I know that most people respect that. as long as they
Good.
know that these are the boundaries and they will respect those boundaries. So I think that self-awareness and people being able to set those boundaries is important. And then the last point I want to make is, being in the moment. And this is something I battle with as well. Like you said, we are on a video call, answering emails, distracted with something else. We've become professional multitaskers, which takes away from us being in the moment and giving either the task at hand your full attention, or when it's time to give your family or your hobbies the full attention that you're able to do that and do justice to it. I think I certainly battle with it. I think a lot of people do. We haven't mastered it, but these are the type of things we're going to need to get really good at to remain sane in this world.
Good. No, thank you. Thank you. Moving on, Ziad and then Rochelle. And then I just want to get a quick little segue. That's Antoinette. You can start thinking we're going to go in a different direction. Ziad and then Rochelle, and then a quick segue into a different angle here.
Yes, I think those comments are spot on. Right? I think the theme of having a boundaryless world, but creating your own boundaries, and then how do you share those parameters? And I think the engagement with your leaders, with your team, all of those things are extremely important. That comes down to the simple point, yet it's so difficult around communication, right? And I think if people understand what those parameters are, then it moves to the next cycle, which is people need to respect that. Okay, because it's easy knowing, but then you as a leader, if you don't have that respect for your individual employees, it just breaks down the fabric of the values in your organization. So I think that's important. The other point that's also important is, that point around outcome driven, right? And flexibility. So as employees, generally, we want the flexibility. We want people to leave us alone so that we can get on with our work. We want to be able to work whether at the office or at home, or down at your holiday home or wherever else. And with that comes a sense of responsibility, right? Because we all work for companies, and we are outcome driven. The company has got to be sustainable, etc. So I think it is a social compact between the employer and the employee, which then comes down to what's the mode of operation? How does the professionalism work? How do we engage? What are, the outputs? And then ultimately, if myself as a leader am happy with your output as an employee because you're doing what you said you would deliver, I'm fine. Okay. So I think it's all of those things. And then the last point that I want to make is really the respect for health. Where you work continuously, people spoke about well-being earlier, and the well-being is really not just about physical well-being, right? It's about the physical well-being, the mental well-being, and making sure that also as a leader, you force your people, even if they are 24/7, you force them to stop, because their well-being means a productive environment, which ultimately means that your business is flourishing and doing well. Thank you.
Good, nice. Rochelle, you could have got the opportunity to wrap this up, and then I want to go off in a slightly different direction. So
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, James. I think your statement has got two sides of it. On the one hand, and this is what I've experienced during the COVID period as well. On the one hand, you have the employee just keeps going without nobody's telling him not to go or not to stop. And last week I was in our Cape Town office, and I had the exact same conversation where I'm asking a person, why are you online 2 o'clock in the morning? Why are you doing that? Because like you say, as leaders and as strategic partners of this business, we got to make sure that the well-being of our employees comes first. So if somebody is online at 2 o'clock in the morning and you need to attend a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, the sleep is not enough. And that is one of the things that we monitor. You monitor people, you see their performance, because at the end of the day, you will burn out, right? And that is where I say that the monitoring and evaluation process must be present, so that you as human resources, you can see. If Rochelle, you know that when I'm exhausted, or when I'm not delivering at my best, and I usually do. And this is where we need to come in as business or as human resources and put that boundary. And some of the people got it right. They said, no, I'm not working beyond 5 o'clock because I've got kids and families and things. Others just keep on going. And those are the people that you need to monitor. And as a business, and especially if you value the well-being and the health of your people, you're going to burn out, and make sure that they don't perform beyond what is expected of them at that point in time. Because, right, there are different projects that we work on. Some will expect me to fly from here to India, and when I land there, I must take a bath and go to a meeting, right? But after that, I need to still sit still and think, what is going to happen if I do this 2 days and 3 days in a row? And as management, and I teach that to the managers all the time, is you need to be present in the lives of your employees so that you can know, you can see who is doing what, where are they at that point in time, and how can you help and say, stop guys, or we lacking behind. We need this person to go forward and that one to step back a bit, and manage, just make sure that you manage them all the time. It's a continuous exercise, James. It just doesn't stop.
It just doesn't stop. Be present in the lives of your team. The wise words over there, and thank you. We're running out of time now, and I wish we had another 2 hours because we're really getting nicely. I'm going to take this in a slightly different way. Right now, there are some of our students there, the youngsters who are either in school, leaving university at the end of the year, and they're looking for jobs, and they're considering the ICT industry. What are the things you're looking for on entrance into your business? What are the things that a student, a prospective employee should pitch up with to be able to be successful in your world? And let's forget about the technical qualification, like what makes for success in your world? Let's particularly take sentences around the room. And Antoinette, you were sitting there very patiently waiting to speak to the other issues, so we'll let you speak to this issue instead.
In fact, the comment I wanted to make relates to this as well.
Good.
And
well,
that
take
is
it.
and that is the entry of artificial intelligence. We're seeing more and more artificial intelligence being used in HR, in the recruiting process. And one of the things that is prevalent with artificial intelligence is the issue of bias and ethics. And that goes back to the conversation we've been having. A lot of our outputs are monitored by artificial intelligence within our organizations. And so you keep getting things thrown at you. You think it's your manager, but it's not your manager. It's an artificial intelligence algorithm in the system that's pushing this out. So I really want to leave this with you, James, and perhaps a conversation for another day. And that really goes back to Kapil's point. Artificial intelligence, it's here. It's real, it's impacting us in tangible ways, from recruitment to how we perform in the workplace. And what are the ethics and biases that are being addressed in that space? Thank you.
Yeah, no, there's important things around that in terms of monitoring people, because there's a fine line to expressing interest on one hand and being a fascist controlling environment over there. And I think that's definitely going to be a question. But I want to stick with this. New people coming into the ICT business, what do they need to be successful? This is for our students who are watching this right now and they want to start a new career next year. What is your message to them? We've got about 3 minutes to go. Who's next? Come, don't all trample on each other there. It's Shanika. I'm sure you wanted to put something in the pot over here.
Yes, so for Oracle, actually, I'll use this opportunity for whoever's on the line. Our internship program actually opens next month, so please feel free to apply.
Yes.
We do not look at any specific qualifications, which is perfect. We look at your drive. We look at, we want to understand your why. So why you are interested in pursuing a career in the ICT industry, and of course, specifically at Oracle, but we look at how we can use your skill set that you've gained in your academics and how we can use it in our business. So we're very flexible to any qualification, James.
I think that's remarkable. We want to understand your why. I mean, that's, it's been a long time since I've been in a job interview, but nobody's asked me that question. That's something to know. Right, who's next? People, youngsters coming to join your organization. What are you looking for?
I'll take the next stab. So from a consulting management services consulting space, I would say critical is curiosity and adaptability. I think everybody who enters the consulting space, you need some sort of a grounding in something. But I've worked with people who are in the HR space who are actually neuroscientists and biochemists, and you see loads of engineers in all over the consulting industry. And I think the thing that sets a good consultant apart from a not so good consultant is a curiosity and your ability to adapt and deal with ambiguity. So you can go from a public sector client, which is a very staid and certain way of working, and then the next day you'll be providing advice to a startup, and you have to be able to shift those gears without falling over in the process. And I think that those are critical skills.
Curiosity, adaptability, living with ambiguity. I love it. One last person over here who's going to stride to the front. I see Bhavna was sort of sending me body language messages. I've got to have this one. I've got to have this one. She said.
No,
and
I was
then we'll just give Riaz
Riaz.
a 3-sentence comment after that.
Riaz has his hand up.
Okay,
Sorry.
just quickly from my side, the thing that I look for is, the first thing I look at is attitude, a positive can-do attitude. You know, and I think that goes such a long way to making a good impression. And you know what I tell youngsters that I coach and mentor, when you get the opportunity, make the person you're working with or working for feel that you are the best thing since sliced bread.
There we go. That's a lovely way of bringing it together. Unfortunately, folks, the time has caught us. It's a terrible thing. We're really just getting to the really exciting stuff where we're going to get our hands around and debate and talk. And each one of you are deeply frustrated because there's so much you want to share with us over here, and we just run out of time. But to our audience out there, thank you for being with us here. We've loved having you with us. For the MBA students out there, you're going to have no shortage of topics for your dissertation, for your technical report. There's going to be some lovely things to do over here. But in terms of bringing us to an end, I'm going to ask a couple to give us these sort of concluding remarks, and then I'll close the show.
Yeah, thanks, James. I must say, I am definitely left a little bit frustrated. Why? Because I think the people around this virtual table have so much to give on the thinking behind our topic. So maybe this warrants the early new year, we pick this up again. And it gives us a lot more time to get even more people in to benefit from the IP, experience, knowledge, and just general orientation around business and people that I see in front of me. I was really, really caught up in some of the stories you guys told, so I really appreciate it. You know, Regenesis will continue to have these webinar series on various topics. This is one of many. And if you guys are willing to be participants in other areas, please give us a shout, give me a shout. I'm more than happy to consider you guys. And as a parting gift from my side, I want to extend an invite to each one of you for a lunch. So lunch is on me, and I'd like to take orders right now, if you don't mind. Who's first?
Okay.
Excellent.
I think you can have everybody is going to want to do that over there. It's a lovely thing and a lovely gesture, yes.
So what I'll do, if you don't mind, guys, with your permission, I'll get in touch with you and we're going to arrange lunch. How about that?
Good.
Excellent.
Thanks, lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to our audience out there. Thank you for being with us. It's been another fantastic, thoroughgoing, fascinating conversation about people living in the new environment as we're going forward in the future. We've all walked away with things we can learn, things we can use out of this. To our panelists over here, thank you so much. Your time is precious to you. You have many things on your plate. You've got demands, you've got challenges, and you've given us without restraint for an hour and a half. You've given us incredible value over here. And so on behalf of the whole Regenesis family, I thank you for your time. I thank you for the effort you put in over here, the way you've grasped the nuts of what to be shared with us over here. And I too am going to give you a gift, but it's not as fancy as well. It's a different sort of gift. It probably is more fancy than couples' gift out there. Our chairman has written a fascinating little book called The Secrets of Success. It's a motivational book, and each one of you will be getting your own copy, because in the old days when we still all came together in a room, you'd come up now and we'd give you a little bag and shake hands over you. You don't have to worry about that. Courier service. We will send you, each one of you, a copy of our Secrets of Success, and I'm sure that will spur you on to greater things. And also, I want to also extend a further invitation to you, because you have insights that our students desperately need. And if any of you are thinking of wanting to be a guest lecturer, running a master class on a particular aspect of human resources or technology or whatever your specific field is, we'd love to have you. And our students just love these things, are sort of having someone like you in the room to be able to ask questions and get to real things. So if that's a fancy area, please get in touch with us. But it's now exactly on 2:30, so you've got to go back to that 2:30 meeting here that you've been that busy. I can see people are busy. The things are lighting up on your desktop are there. So from me to each one of you, thank you so much for your time. I've learned immeasurably. I've enjoyed your company. You are great human beings. And I really, really do hope that our path crosses again. So from all of us at Regenesis, and all of you are now part of the Regenesis family, thank you, and have a lovely afternoon and evening, and be safe. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. All the best.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Right.
Recording stopped.
And there we go. Thank you, events. We have come to the end of the show.